Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I know we might still be expecting a few folks, but we'll start going and getting the ball rolling because we have a lot of information to cover. My name is Pooja Thakur, and I'm the Communications Planner for Elections Calgary, and I will be moderating today's information session. The format for today is a presentation followed by a question and answer. So we will start to begin, and just apologies if there was any miscommunication on the timing of today's session. So you did not miss anything. We're just beginning now. After the session and after the presentation, please type your questions into the chat. You can do so throughout or once we've completed all of the slides in case we're going to cover what you might be asking about. You will have the option to submit your name in the chat box or to do so anonymously. We will be grouping similar questions together and we'll do our best to provide an answer after the presentation. But we might not be able to get to every single question today. So in case we are unable to do so, or if we have some clarifying details, then we'll make a note of that and try and provide it at a later time by posting all of the questions and the answers on the website together. Just so you know, this information session is being recorded, and this presentation and all previous ones are also posted on the Elections Calgary website and YouTube channel. As I said, we will be grouping today's questions together, and then we'll post a full list of all of the questions and answers in case something comes up that you may have forgotten to ask or if someone else makes note of it. I also wanted to let you know that the information in this presentation is being provided for convenience of reference only. So there are further requirements that may be set out in the Local Authorities Election Act that we ask candidates to review. I would now like to pass this over to Andrew Brower, Deputy City Clerk with Elections Calgary, who is leading the presentation.
Okay, so thank you, Pooja, and good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank you all for taking interest in our amazing community and our democratic process. The community benefits from your time, efforts, and leadership, and I wish you all the best in your campaigns. Elections Calgary is a division of the City Clerk's office and is committed to delivering a safe, accessible, and legislatively compliant election. I'm fortunate to have a talented and supportive team behind me, and I'd like to acknowledge their contributions in planning today's session. Thank you. Next slide. I just want to confirm the slides are moving to the topics. Thank you. We're going to go to the topics covered slide. Thank you. Okay, so today we're going to cover a range of topics from what's on the ballot to voting options and what to expect inside the voting station to COVID precautions, ballot marking, and recounts. As Pooja mentioned, questions and answers will be posted on electionscalgary.ca. Next slide, please. Okay, in previous elections, small paper ballots were provided for each individual election. This year, a composite ballot will be used, meaning that each ballot will contain more than one election or question on the same ballot paper. So there will be two ballots provided to voters. The municipal ballot will include the candidates for the office of mayor, office of councillor, and school board trustee, either public or separate, to be declared by the voter. A municipal ballot without a school board election will also be available for French school board electors and public school board electors in the City of Calgary who reside outside the Calgary Board of Education jurisdiction. The municipal ballot will also include the question, are you in favor of reintroducing fluoridation of the municipal water supply? The provincial ballot will include the candidates for the Senate election. Voters will select up to 3 candidates and the 2 referendum questions. The first question is, should Section 36(2) of the Constitution Act 1982, Parliament and the Government of Canada's commitment to the principle of making equalization payments be removed from the Constitution? And the other question is, do you want Alberta to adopt year-round daylight saving time, which is summer hours, eliminating the need to change our clocks twice a year? Next slide. Some further details about the ballots. Ballots will be single-sided on legal-sized paper that is 8.5 by 11 inches. Any acclaimed offices will be noted on the ballot, but the name of the candidate who was elected by acclamation will not be. Incumbents will not be indicated on the ballot. Candidate names will be presented as indicated on the candidate's Form 4 in order of first, middle name or initial, and surname. Candidate names will appear in 12-point font in all caps or all capital letters. The slate of candidates will be in alphabetical order by surname, and Senate candidates will also show their party affiliation. So I'll just pause for a minute here and you can see the example on the slide of how names will appear. So you can see it's by alphabetical order by surname. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this slide shows an example of a municipal ballot, in this case, a public school supporter, and the provincial ballot on the right. In the municipal ballot's header, you can see the Elections Calgary logo and instruction on how to mark the ballot by filling in the oval to the right of the candidate's name or answer of their choice, and an identifier for the ballot type, P for public and AB for Alberta or provincial. The voter's councillor and public school board trustee candidates will vary by the ward in which they reside. You can see how the fluoridation question is located below the elected offices on the municipal ballot. On the provincial ballot, you can see the Senate candidates in the left column and the 2 referendum questions in the right. Next slide. I wanted to draw your attention to some important dates coming up. Nomination day is Monday, September the 20th, and that's the last day in which nominations may be received. They must be received by noon on September 20th and only at the Elections Calgary office, which is 2340 22nd Street Northeast. Nominations will not be accepted at the City Hall and Municipal Complex downtown. Please do not submit nomination papers in the mail or leave them in the secure drop box at the Municipal Complex with the expectation that they will be received by Elections Calgary by noon on September the 20th. Regarding withdrawals of nomination, the last day to do so is on noon, Tuesday, September 21st. Please withdraw in writing and use the Statement of Candidate Nomination Withdrawal form available on the electionscalgary.ca website. If you wish to withdraw and miss the September 21st deadline to do so, please note that Elections Calgary has no legal authority to remove your name from the ballot. Candidates are accountable for advising voters about their change of plans. Next slide, please. Elections Calgary has prepared a comprehensive voter awareness campaign. You'll see most of our major tactics unfold following the September 20th federal election to minimize voter confusion. Some of the key communications include a voter information card to be mailed to every household in Calgary the week of September the 20th. The card will show the locations for where to vote for advance vote during the week and on the weekend and on election day. A voter guide will be mailed the weeks of September 27th and October the 4th and will include voting options, a prepare to vote checklist, who is running, where to vote, among other things. The Where Do I Vote tool will also be available at electionscalgary.ca. A voter enters their address and it will tell them where their designated voting stations will be. A variety of ads and notices will also form part of the awareness campaign through various media, including TV, radio, YouTube, bold signs and billboards, as well as traditional print media. Advance and election day ads will also be translated into top non-English languages to support new Canadians. Next slide, please. It's important to acknowledge the critical role that election workers play in the democratic process. Election workers are your neighbors. They are Calgarians for all walks of life and reflect the city's diversity of culture, language, age, and ability. Approximately 3,600 election workers are required for this year's election, filling a variety of roles. New this year, we have encouraged 16 and 17-year-old youth to apply for information officer roles. Election workers are required to complete a comprehensive training program that involves both online and in-class learning. In addition to their regular duties, election workers will ensure voters, candidates, and their scrutineers are safe by setting up voting stations which allow for social distancing and that high-touch surfaces are regularly sanitized. I will now turn it over to Janine Dryden, our leader of operations, who will provide an outline of the voting process.
Thanks, Andrew. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go over today the three main voting options that we will have available. Our advance vote will run October 4th to 10th. We'll have our election day voting stations, and we also have our special mail-in ballot for those that are eligible. Next slide, please. For the advance vote this election, voters will have a designated weekday advance vote station and a designated weekend advance vote station. Additionally, they'll be able to vote at City Hall Monday to Friday. The 2021 advance vote stations are designated by communities. Taking this approach allows for space in stations for social distancing, allows for higher than average number of municipal candidates and a question on the ballot, the Senate election, and referendum, which means a potential of more scrutineers in the voting stations. By designating voting stations, we will have more accurate voter turnout estimates, which means a better ability to plan logistics, for example, the number of ballots required, as well as being able to determine the appropriate level of staff required. The advance vote opportunities are close to voters' homes. Historically, our records indicate that most people vote in their ward during the advance vote period. This also supports the City Auditor's recommendation from the 2017 election and builds on the success from the 2018 Olympic vote. Next slide, please. In addition to the community advance vote stations, we will also have dedicated voting stations in care facilities and shelters. Our care facilities have been selected based on the criteria of facilities that provide supported living services and have at least 75 residents. We will have 56 care facilities that will receive on-site voting stations during the advance vote period, and 22 care facilities that are participating in a modified mail-in ballot service option. We will also have voting stations at 5 shelter facilities for the shelter residents: the Alpha House, the YWCA, the Calgary Drop-In Center, the Mustard Seed Foothills, and Salvation Army. For the Calgary Catholic School Board jurisdictions that extend beyond city limits, we will co-locate in voting stations in Airdrie, Chestermere, Cochrane, and Rocky View County during the advance vote. Our tables will only have the Calgary Catholic School Board district ballot, and the other municipalities will provide the local and provincial ballots. Please be aware that some post-secondary institutions have limited or no public access and may require proof of COVID-19 vaccinations or completion of a rapid response test. For example, currently Bow Valley College has no public access and is limited to staff and students. We have confirmed that candidates and scrutineers may access Bow Valley College, but are required to register ahead of the post-secondary to allow security officers to grant access. More information about accessing voting stations will be shared through the candidate and third-party newsletter as it becomes available. Next slide, please. As per recommendations from the City Auditor's Office, we have reduced the number of electors per station. The initial recommendation was to have less than 7,100 electors served at each voting station. However, due to COVID-19, we have lowered that target to less than 6,500 electors per station. This has resulted in an increase of 21 stations on election day compared to 2017. Most election day facilities are schools. We have a partnership with both school boards to have a PD day on October 18th, which means that there will be no students in schools on election day. Next slide, please. A candidate, campaign worker, or scrutineer who cannot attend available voting opportunities qualifies to request a mail-in ballot. We recommend that mail-in ballots be requested early to allow sufficient time for the mailing process. Instructions on how to fill in and seal the package will be sent to voters, and translated instructions will be available online. Mail-in ballots can be requested until noon on election day and must be returned to the election office by 4 p.m. on election day. Next slide, please. New this year, we are adding 6 mail-in drop boxes in locations across the city. These will provide an additional way to return the mail-in ballot envelope, which is especially useful closer to as we get to election day, when time limitations affect returning the package by mail. These drop boxes will be located inside city facilities or partner facilities. They will be monitored by CCTV. They will be secured to fixed structures, and they will also have a GPS tracking device installed. The boxes will be emptied daily. Next slide, please. We will have 4 Dropbox locations inside libraries, in addition to the City Hall secure Dropbox and the election office. These Dropbox locations will be noted in special ballot packages and will also be available online. Next slide, please. We have prepared an online video to explain how to complete the mail-in ballot package in addition to the instructions that will come with the package. We will also be providing those translated instructions on our website. And we'll now watch a short video showing the mail-in ballot process.
If you are unable to vote during the advance vote or on election day because you are physically unable, you are working as an election worker or scrutineer, or because you will not be in your local jurisdiction, you may apply to vote by special ballot or mail-in ballot. Visit electionscalgary.ca and fill out the special mail-in ballot application form. Application forms will be received and packages will be sent back to voters in September after nomination day. Once you receive your package, mark the ballot by completely filling in the oval to the right of the candidate or answer of your choice. After marking your ballot, fold your ballot so the text is on the inside of the fold. Place in ballot envelope A and seal the envelope. You do not need to return the instructions or original envelope. Place ballot envelope A into certificate envelope B and seal. Complete Part 1 of Certificate Envelope B. Attach a copy of your ID with your name and current address to Certificate Envelope B. Be mindful that you do not place it inside Certificate Envelope B. Place your identification and Certificate Envelope B into Return Envelope C and seal the package. Return the package by mail, in person at the elections office or at one of the secure drop boxes located throughout the city. Mail-in ballots must be received by the Elections Calgary office by 4 p.m. on election day.
Thank you. Elections Calgary has been working hard to ensure voting stations are accessible for voters. In April and May of this year, all voting station facilities were inspected to confirm they met accessibility considerations for such things as level access or ramps or doorway and hallway widths. This year we will be offering 2 free Calgary Transit tickets to voters who take Calgary Transit to the voting station, similar to what was offered by Alberta Health Services at the mass vaccination sites. We will have voter assist machines at all advanced vote stations. These machines allow voters with physical disabilities the ability to mark their ballot independently. Alternatively, voters may bring a family or friend to assist and all of our staff are trained as well to assist. Magnifying glasses will be available at every voting station for voters with vision impairments. We are also working with Access Calgary to ensure their staff are aware of the election, as they may be bringing voters to voting stations. We will have voting station specific accessibility information available through our Where Do I Vote online tool. Every voting station will have voting instructions posted in multiple languages, and a sign will be posted that lists the languages spoken by workers at that station. Next slide, please. Elections Calgary will be following all current health and safety requirements of the City of Calgary and Alberta Health Services, as well as contract obligations with facilities regarding COVID measures. COVID is a fluid situation, and it's important to check back regularly to our website. We will share current COVID measures with candidates through the candidate and third-party advertiser newsletter. Our goal is to provide a safe environment for voters, election workers, and scrutineers. We would ask that anyone visiting our voting stations follow public health requirements and facility requirements. Some of those requirements will include wearing masks or face shields, providing single-use golf pencils for each voter. Voters are also encouraged to bring their own pencils or ballpoint pens. We will provide masks and hand sanitizer at every voting station. We will encourage voters to complete their registration form at home in advance, and we will be cleaning frequently touched area surfaces throughout the day. As well, we will be encouraging social distancing and line management. Next slide, please. Now we will go over the voter experience and what to expect in the voting station. Next slide, please. Thanks. We will now watch a short video to explain the in-person voting process.
Voting is a simple process for you to take part in. Once you arrive at your voting station, you will be greeted by an election worker who will direct you where you will need to go. If you need any assistance, such as information in another language, they can help you. Please note, no photos or videos are allowed in the voting station. Once inside, present one of the acceptable forms of identification that has your name and address on it. Then, fill out your voter statement. An election worker will give you your ballots in a secrecy sleeve, which you will take behind the voting booth to fill out. Once you are behind the voting booth, follow the instructions on how to mark the ballot by completely filling in the oval to the right of the candidate or answer of your choice. Once you have filled out your ballot, place your ballot back inside the secrecy sleeve and take it to the tabulator clerk. The tabulator clerk will insert and scan your ballot into the tabulator to record your vote. And thank you for voting.
As you can see, the voting process is quite simple. Some of the tips that we do ask to provide a smooth voting experience is printing out the registration form 13 RSE, filling in your name and address and bringing it with you, ensuring you have your ballot ID with you, and not leaving the tabulator station until the ballots have been processed. Next slide, please. When marking a ballot, the voter will need to fill in the bubble to the right of the name of the candidate or answer of choice. For all municipal candidates, school board trustees, and questions, voters will select one choice. For the Senate, voters will be asked to select up to 3 choices. Scrutineers are not allowed to assist voters in marking the ballot. Next slide, please. And I'll turn it back over to Andrew now.
Thank you, Janine. As illustrated in the video there, in this election, vote tabulator technology will be used to scan and tabulate the vote. Tabulators improve the speed, accuracy, and timely reporting of results and have been successfully used in Calgary's 2018 Olympic vote and several other comparable Canadian jurisdictions. Each tabulator and associated software is thoroughly tested and secured before, during, and after use. In this election, the city's tabulator vendor is Election Systems and Software, often referred to as ES&S. Ballots are inserted into the tabulator and markings are scanned and tabulated corresponding with the voter's choices in each election or question. Ballots drop into a secure cardboard ballot box on which the tabulator sits. Next slide, please. Tabulators use both physical and digital security keys, including lockable doors, tamper-evident seals, and access codes. Tabulators are stored in a secure facility and can only be accessible by designated election officials. All data in the tabulator is digitally signed and encrypted using industry standard technologies. Next slide, please. The two types of tabulators that will be used in this election are the DS450 and the DS200. The DS450 is a high-speed scanner and tabulator, and two of those units will be used to process mail-in or special ballots at the Elections Calgary office. The DS200 will be used in each voting station. You can see that image on the right. Next slide, please. On rare occasion, a tabulator's functionality may be disrupted. Typical examples include a sustained loss of power, where a ballot scan slot is jammed or ripped, or where a mechanical failure prevents ballots from being processed. Where disruptions occur, in order to ensure the efficient flow of voters, marked ballots are inserted into the auxiliary slot. The auxiliary slot is physically separated from the marked ballots processed by the tabulator. Ballots inserted into the auxiliary slot are processed after the close of voting stations in the presence of any candidates or their scrutineers, and I will review that procedure in a subsequent slide. Once the tabulator is replaced or otherwise operational, the auxiliary slot is sealed and election officials apply their signature. Next slide, please. So in the next few slides, I will review how various ballot markings will be processed in keeping with the Local Authorities Elections Act and the Elections Bylaw. Let's start with overvotes. This occurs when a voter has marked more candidates than permitted for that contest or answered both yes and no to a question. When this occurs, a beep will sound on the tabulator when a contest is overvoted, and the voter has two choices. They can correct their ballot. They are offered a replacement ballot and their original ballot is marked spoiled. Or they can choose to leave the ballot as is, and the tabulator will record that contest as overvoted, and their votes in that contest will not count toward the total. Any properly marked contests on the ballots will be counted. In this sample, votes will register for candidate 2 in the councillor election and candidate 4 in the public school board election if they choose to have their ballot go through. Next slide, please. Blank ballots. A ballot is considered blank when a voter intentionally leaves all contests blank on a ballot or does not mark their ballot properly by completely filling in the bubble to the right of the candidate or answer of their choice. As an example, if a voter checks or circles a candidate's name, it will register as a blank ballot. A blank ballot, a beep will sound on the tabulator when all contests are left blank. The voter has two choices. They can correct their ballot, and they are instructed on how to mark their ballot properly and return to do so. Or the voter can choose to leave their ballot as is, and the tabulator will record contests with nothing in any bubble as blank. If a voter has properly marked their ballot for one contest and left the balance of the other contest blank, the tabulator will not beep and the ballot will be accepted. The tabulator will count any contest where the bubble is filled in. Next slide, please. Unreadable marks. An unreadable ballot occurs where the voter has made an indistinguishable mark within the bubble. And you can see that on the candidate 4 marking on the right side there in the public school board election. And they have two choices. They can correct their ballot, and they are instructed on how to mark their ballot properly and return to do so. And I should mention that the tabulator does make a beeping noise when that occurs. Or they can choose to leave the ballot as is, and the tabulator will record any valid marks. In this example, if they were to leave their ballot as is, votes will register for candidate 2 in the mayor contest and candidate 2 in the councillor contest. Next slide, please. A voter may decide they do not wish to participate in a particular election or question. Election officials are obliged to provide all ballots to a voter. If a voter wishes to decline to vote in all elections or questions on the ballot, they can return the ballot to the election official. The declined ballot will be marked as a rejected ballot. They may also choose to cast their blank ballot through the tabulator. As indicated, a voter can also choose to leave some questions or elections on a blank ballot, and any validly marked questions or elections will be counted. Voters will make mistakes in marking their ballot. They may receive a replacement ballot, and their original ballot is marked as spoiled. Election officials are sworn to secrecy and can help any voter mark their ballot properly. Next slide, please. Okay, if the auxiliary slot is used during voting hours due to a tabulator disruption, those ballots need to be processed through the functioning tabulator at the close of the voting station. If this occurs, election officials will, in the presence of any candidates or their scrutineers, remove any ballots in the auxiliary slot compartment, and they will set aside any ballots where the identity of the voter has been revealed. For example, they may have signed their ballot. Legislation requires that those ballots be rejected. Election officials will review the ballots and determine where voter intent is clear, but the ballot may have been incorrectly marked. For example, they mark a choice outside of the bubbles, or if the ballot appears to be damaged. Election officials prepare a replacement ballot replicating the voter's choices, and the original ballot is marked as spoiled. Following the replication of ballots, all ballots are run through the tabulator. Any blank and overvoted ballots are accepted by the tabulator. Candidates or their scrutineers may object to how election officials have interpreted and/or replicated a voter's ballot. However, an election official's determination is final. Next slide, please. Okay, in keeping with the election bylaw, mail-in ballots are processed through the high-speed tabulators after 8 a.m. on election day. I should note that results will not be generated until after 8 p.m. Any blank, overvoted, or defective ballots are queued into a separate tray in the high-speed tabulator. In the presence of any candidates or scrutineers, election officials gather the ballots from the tray and set aside any ballots where the identity of the voter has been revealed. For example, they have signed their ballot. As I mentioned in the previous slide, under the Local Authorities Elections Act, a ballot which discloses the identity of the voter must be rejected. Election officials then determine where voter intent is clear, but the ballot may have been incorrectly marked. Again, where they may have indicated a choice, but they didn't do so by marking by filling in the bubbles. Election officials prepare a replacement ballot replicating the voter's choices, and the original ballot is marked as spoiled. Following this process, all ballots are then run through the tabulator, and any blank and overvoted ballots are accepted. Just like the last slide, any candidates or their scrutineers may object to how an election official has interpreted and/or replicated a voter's ballot, and the election official's determination is final. Okay, I'm going to pass this presentation back over to Janine Dryden.
Thanks, Andrew. So there are some rules that apply to everyone in the voting station, whether they're an election worker, voters, candidates, official agents, or scrutineers. Campaigning is not allowed in the voting station. This includes wearing any campaign material, such as a t-shirt or a button. Campaign signs and materials are not allowed on the voting station property. No photography or video recordings are allowed in the voting station. This includes selfies, pictures of ballots, and social media live streams or recordings. Next slide, please. Scrutineers who visit voting stations must bring their appointment form signed by the candidate, or in the case of a question, signed by the returning officer. Only one scrutineer per candidate or one scrutineer per yes/no side of a question is allowed in the station at one time. A scrutineer and the candidate that they represent cannot be in the station at the same time. Scrutineers are asked to stay in their designated area. Scrutineers cannot interact with voters, interrupt voting, or touch ballots or forms. Scrutineers may object to a voter during the voter's registration process. If a scrutineer objects to a voter, they should alert an election worker discreetly to their objection so that it may be noted on the voter's registration form. A voter that is objected to is still allowed to vote. Scrutineers may also object to a ballot, as Andrew had indicated, during the adjudication process. This only occurs if a tabulator malfunctions and the auxiliary slot is used. Scrutineers who are in attendance when the voting station opens can observe the ballot box being empty and can look at the opening statement generated by the tabulator. Also available for review in voting stations is a list of voters who have voted by mail-in ballot. If a scrutineer wishes to observe the results generation, they must be inside the voting station by 8 p.m. They are not allowed to leave and come back inside after that time. We are working on a scrutineer video, which will be available later this month, and we will have an information guide for scrutineers available at each voting station. Next slide, please. Scrutineers are welcome to attend any advance vote station, including post-secondaries in City Hall, all Election Day voting stations, and our counting center at the Elections Office on Election Day. Scrutineers cannot attend voting stations at hospitals, care facilities, or shelters. Next slide, please. Complaints and questions about election signs should be directed to Bylaw Services via 311. On our website, we have links to a summary of the bylaw, a tip sheet for candidates, complete bylaw document, which includes a full list of offenses and associated fines. A common question we get is whether the address must be displayed on the sign. The answer is yes. According to the bylaw, all signs must have the sign owner information, which includes name, address, and telephone number. Next slide, please. Unofficial results for Election Day voting stations will be generated in the voting station. The tabulator results tape will be printed and posted for candidates and scrutineers to view. Unofficial results from advance vote stations, care facilities, hospitals, and shelters will be generated at the Elections Calgary office. Again, tabular results tape will be printed and posted for viewing. The unofficial results will be securely transmitted via a private and secure segregated network to a standalone server in a secure facility. Results will be available online at electionscalgary.ca on election night, with citywide total votes for mayor, fluoridation question, and the Senate election and referendum. Ward level votes will be available for councillor, public, and separate school trustees. We will release the results by station before October 20th at noon on our website. The official results are released by October 22nd at noon. Next slide, please. If you believe there are reasonable grounds for a recount, a written application must be made by 4 p.m. on October 20th to the returning officer. As well, the returning officer will be reviewing valid ballots objected to and rejected ballots, not blanks, to make an independent determination if a recount is required, or if the returning officer believes that there was an administrative or technical error. If a recount is required, the returning officer will notify candidates, scrutineers, and staff 12 hours before it begins. Recounts must be done prior to October 22nd at noon. One little note, a recount is required to be conducted in the same way that ballots were counted in the voting station, meaning if there was a recount, ballots would again be counted by tabulator as per the Act.